Now, I think it's pretty safe to say that the future of the Star Wars universe seems to be quite expansive, not just with their books, novels, comics, and video games, but also, let's not forget about the new Star Wars TV shows, movies, and more that are set to arrive on, of course, not just Disney+, but also in theaters. That's going to be a big deal for Disney and Lucasfilm as a whole. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars updates. Also, by the way, guys, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you also very much for the kind support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, one thing about the Star Wars universe that a lot of Star Wars fans are very excited about is exactly what's been happening between Favreau and Filoni as well as Lucas to really deliver Star Wars Legends back in action. Now, basically what they are doing is that they are taking a lot of highlights from Legends, talking about, of course, you know, the Throne Trilogy, Dark Empire, Shadows of the Empire, you name it, and throwing that into the Disney canon is exactly what's happening for the Ahsoka series, Mando Season 3 and 4, as well as a handful of other projects that are set to be announced later this fall. Now, on top of all of this, what's even all the more exciting has a lot to do with the fact that JJ Abrams has been a little bit more talkative about his experience with the sequel trilogy movies and really shedding some light on the truth of what his experience was like with Lucasfilm creatives, including Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilm, and exactly what went down with the sequel trilogy movies, specifically The Rise of Skywalker, the end of it all. Now, of course, we already know that JJ has no plans to come back to the Star Wars franchise for multiple reasons, as we discussed already before in the past. However, what's really intriguing about what JJ had to say here all alludes to exactly the negativity by Kathleen Kennedy. Now, with the sequel trilogy still a highly criticized series of films that were in control by Kathy Kennedy, Disney executives are now trying to bring back the fans that walked away from the franchise after Episode 9 debuted back in 2019. However, in a recent interview with JJ Abrams, when he was being questioned about the latest Mission Impossible film, Dead Reckoning, he was questioned about his experience on the sets of the sequel trilogy movies. JJ went on to state the following: "To be honest with everyone, it was a very stressful time in my life working on those films, especially the last one, because I didn't really want to come back in the first place. After what Kathleen Kennedy had pitched for me to do with Palpatine, I just felt something was off with the way the story was ending, and that it had so much more potential. I never agreed with the lack of Luke in Episode 9. I would always tell Kathy that it was a mistake to kill him off in the middle of the trilogy. Terrible mistake, but I respect Johnson for what he actually did with his vision in the middle of the trilogy. There was a lot of creative differences set between myself and Kathy. I had wanted to use many of Colin Trevorrow's concepts. I wanted to bring in a new villain and a unique backstory for Rey. It was all out of my hands in the end. I was convinced to join this project because I felt this immense pressure when I got the phone call by Kathy that they couldn't find anybody else of interest to join the last Star Wars movie of the sequels. It was too much of a responsibility for nearly everyone they had contacted, and I did too. I felt like I was their last resort, so I decided, what the hell, let's get this started and end this series the right way that it should." Now, let me just pause here for a second of what JJ Abrams is saying here. Now, the fact that nobody wanted anything to do with The Rise of Skywalker, let's think about this for a second here. This goes to show you exactly why this movie had so many issues to begin with. Now, sure, there are good moments in the Episode 9 film. There's no doubt about that. It has its moments. But as a movie in its entirety, I felt like they had a lot of focus on Poe, Finn, Rey, and that kind of flatline dynamic that was very boring at times. I don't know about you guys, but to me it was. The thing about this too is that this movie in particular had a lot of things coming for it because they completely excluded Colin Trevorrow's treatments of Duel of the Fates, which, by the way, if you guys go ahead and check out that concept art and his story ideas that he had actually created, I think it's personally far superior than what we got in Episode 9. So JJ goes on to really criticize Episode 9, because of Palpatine. And we're going to dive more into this in just a second. Now, again, the fact that nobody wanted to get involved with Episode 9, it just goes to show you that they knew that this trilogy was tainted by Kathleen Kennedy. There was a lot of things wrong with it. They were very much aware about the backlash and the potential problems that it could give their career if they were to get involved in a big movie such as Star Wars, right? I mean, look at what it did to JJ. So, moving forward from that, alright, he goes on to say, so, of course, once I joined, they wanted nothing to do with the story ideas that I presented to them. I suggested maybe Snoke would come back and have some action, or maybe Tor Valum, which was Colin's idea of a villain, or some kind of influence over Kylo Ren that would be inserted into the story properly. And hey, look, I love Palpatine as much as anybody, and I did the best I could. The problem I had was the pushed direction and how forced the story was. For starters, I was specifically instructed to never reveal how Palpatine survived. That was a big no-no from Kathleen Kennedy. She wanted to keep that a mystery. She also wanted to completely cut down on all the planned cutscenes, of course, that I had actually for Rey's parents, to at least explain how Rey's father is the son of Palpatine. She also wanted nothing to do with that either. And so we got this feedback from the film, and of course once it arrived, that left many fans very confused and questioning themselves, and it didn't feel good as a writer. It just really didn't. It's why I didn't want to come back in the first place, because of this pressure and forced storyline that was out of my control in the end. It was a tough production with some reshoots and a lot of editing and cutting out scenes. So JJ leaves it at that, and I just want to dive into something very important here, that JJ Abrams has been very quiet about the sequel movies. I mean, we haven't really heard about him in, 4 months, give or take. He's not really been engaging in all that many questions about Star Wars, so I think a lot of it has to do with the reason behind the fact that it really created a lot of image issues for him. A lot of people, when they look at JJ Abrams now, they look at the guy who made the ending of the sequel trilogy, right? And as it turns out, it really wasn't all JJ's fault. It was really Kathleen Kennedy putting the pressure on JJ, putting all of that, that responsibility on his shoulders, and just telling him, there's nobody else that wants to do this. We need you to come back. He wasn't in contract or anything like that. He specifically instructed Kathleen Kennedy after The Force Awakens that he didn't want to do The Last Jedi, and he didn't want to do Episode 9. But when Colin Trevorrow was fired, and they were trying to get somebody else, and they failed, they were left with no choice but to get JJ back and to offer him a big paycheck, a very big paycheck, like a lot more than The Force Awakens, and that, I think, is what really did it for JJ. He's just not going to say it here, obviously, but overall, I would love to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, because it is a very complex thing, and it's very unfortunate of how it happened. It is a good point that he points out there, that Palpatine and his survival was never explained. How Palpatine's son is never explained. That's all done in the book. So overall, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys have to say about this below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.